We're now on Nun Zayin Omid Beis. Ibois Ema Chutz Mipnim Bechad Zimna Gomir. In other words, the procedure of Hazoyos for the Kodesh Kadoshim, and we derive that Kodesh Kadoshim, and therefore even in Heichel, that's all Zimnin Chad Zimnin. That's all like in one limud. Okay. If you say that which you derive partially from Hekesh is not considered Hekesh, we now understand the Moshvosechem Taviu Lechem Tnufa. Right, this is the Parsha of Shtei Lechem on Shavuos in Vayikra Chav Gimel. And the Shtei Lechem were made of soles of chita, soles chita, and they were chametz. And these would accompany the kivsei atzeres, which, as we said, is shalmei tzibur, and the Shtei Lechem was eaten by the Kohen. So the pasuk says, "Mimoshvosechem taviu lechem tnufa." She'ein talmud lomer taviu. Why do we need the word taviu? The word taviu is superfluous. It's unnecessary because the pasuk itself, in the previous pasuk, says, "V'kravta mincha chadasha l'Hashem." So you are bringing the mincha chadasha. You are bringing the Shtei Lechem. So why do you have to repeat Mimoshvosechem taviu? What's the taviu? Ma tamalom taviu. Kol shatamevi mimokom acher hareu kazeh. Whoa! This is an equation to the 10 lechamim of the 40 lechamim that accompany a korban toda. So we're now establishing a hekesh between the Shtei Lechem brought to accompany the Kivsei Atzeres on Shavuos with the 10 Lachmei Toda that accompany the Korban Toda that are made of chametz. What do we gain from that equation? Ma'ala halon, in the case of Shtei Lechem, isaron lechala. Each chala of the two, there are two Shtei Lechems, requires an isaron. Right, a certain volume of flour, and we're going to now derive the conclusion that the lachmei toda of the 10 that are made of chametz likewise require an isaron lechal. So each one of the 10 is going to require an isaron. Isaron is again a volume of flour. Because the pasuk says, "Mimoshvosechem taviu lechem tnufa." Shtayim shnei esronim. So shnei esronim for the two lecham means each one of the lechamim requires an isaron. Solis tiyena chametz te'afena bikurim lashem. So again, for these two lechamim, you need two esronim. And with regard to the lechamim of chametz of a korban toda, those 10 lechamim, we're also going to require that they have right. Each one should be an isaron. So now the Brisa continues. Maybe we want to say that the total of all the 10 lechamim in Toda should be Shnei Esronim. Not that each lechem requires an isaron, but the totality of the 10 lechamim should be made from Shnei Esronim, because in the case of Shtei Lechem on Shavuos, the totality of the Shtei Lechem is from Shnei Esronim. Tamalom Tiyena. And Tiyena is setting up an equation to tell you that just like in Lachmei, in Shtei Lechem of Shavuos, each Lechem needs an isaron, so too in the Eser lachme chametz of the korban toda, each one needs an isaron. Now the Brisa says, "Well, madu asor lechametz, asor lematzah minam." There are another 30 lechamim that are matzah. How do we know that that requirement of isaron for each one should apply to the matzah? Talmud lomar al chalos lechem chametz. Neged chametz havei matzah. So basically what you have is a hekesh built on top of a hekesh. Why? We started with shtei lechem, and we didn't know whether the shnei esronim should apply to lachmei toda, to the chametz. For that, we needed an equation. And that was derived from Taviu. Now we want to know whether the 30 lechamim that accompany the lechem, the korban toda that are matzah, they too also are bound by this same minimum of isarim. And that we're going to derive from Tiena. So it's like one hekesh built on another hekesh. So let's go back to the Bishlema. Bishlema l'mandi omer lo havi hekesh. If you're going to say that which is only derived partially from a hekesh, because after all, we have here an equation between the lachmei chametz and the lachmei matzah. So again, that's going to teach me the amount of kemach that you need for first of all, for the chametz, and then for the matzah. So that's a full-fledged hekesh. So the second part, when we jump from lachmei chametz to lachmei matzah, that's a full-fledged hekesh. But the original derivation, not in terms of the just 1 second. Let me just make sure I got it right here. Again, deriving the amount of flour that you need for the matzah from the chametz. That's a hekesh. Now, how do you know that the chametz requires, right, an isaron for each one of the 10 lechamim that are chametz, meaning a total of 10 esronos? That's only partially derived from a hekesh. That's not a full-fledged hekesh. So for this, we have to go back a little bit to a gzeira shava between Toda and Trumas Maaseh. Okay, so that's part of the sugya that's in Menachos. It's not here. The number of lachmei chametz is derived in Menachos Daf Ayin Zayin from a gzeira shav between Toda, meaning the lachmei Toda, and Trumas Maaseh. Right, so Maaseh is 1/10 that's given to the Levi. Maaseh Rishon, and that which is given to the Kohen from the lachmei Toda is also 1 out of 10. So we always maintain that fraction, that ratio of 1 to 10. And that itself is a gzeira shav, which is considered like a partial hekesh, in this case to Trumas Maaseh. Elamanti omelo havi hekesh. No, I'm sorry. You have to take out the word lo here, like that's the box point. Elamanti omar havi hekesh, that even something that's only partially derived from a hekesh is considered a hekesh. Michael Meimar, how do we have a right to derive? Number one, how much flour you need, and number two, whether or not this applies to the Toda matzahs. And where it says Taviu ribuyehu. Okay, we go back to the Mishnah. HaPesach eno nechal ela ad chatzos. Mantan. Who is the opinion that maintains that the latest time for eating the basar Pesach is the middle of the night? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Losman Azariah, he desanya. Rabbi Losman Azariah Omer, Nemar Kan Balayla Zeh. Right, the Torah says, V'yochlos ha-basar Balayla Zeh. V'nemar lahalon v'avarti be'eretz Mitzrayim Balayla Zeh. Makas Bechoros took place exactly at Chatzos. Malahalon at Chatzos, just like Makas Bechoros took place at Chatzos. Afkan, even here, with regard to eating the basar of the Korban Pesach, ad Chatzos. So this is Gzeir Shova Balayla Zeh. Mamal Rabbi Akiva, V'alo kfar nemar ve'achaltem also b'chipaza. Now somehow Rabbi Akiva derives from the word b'chipaza that it refers to the following morning, and the achila is therefore extended throughout the entire night. Ad shas chipaza. So for this we have to mention the fact that although at midnight Paro said, "You're free and get out of here," but they didn't actually leave during the night. They didn't want to look like thieves in the middle of the night, so they waited till the morning, and that's called shas chipaza. Im kain ma talmud lom b'layla seh. So you're telling me, Rabbi Akiva, that Bechipazon teaches me that it's in the daytime. Well, what are you going to do with the pasuk v'yachlos ha-basar b'layla zeh, which was the basis of Rabbi Velos ben Azariah's conclusion? Shiachi yechal kosh v'nechal b'yom tama b'layla yenechal v'ein nechal b'yom. So according to Rabbi Akiva, what we have here is b'layla zeh is telling me throughout the entire night, and that we know from the fact that b'chipazon means in the morning, but we need to know that you have to eat it at night and not in the daytime, but throughout the entire night. So now, according to Rabbi Yosef, our Mishnah is Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Amalei Abayu mimayd Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah dilmar abon l'harchik es adam in avera. Right, we have a principle that whatever goes through the entire night, the Rabbanan said that you should fulfill it as harchaka by the latest midnight. Like, for example, the Mishnah at the beginning of Shas and Kriyat Shema. So maybe our Mishnah is only reflecting our Chaka D'Rabbanan. How do you know it's Doraisa? And it's Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. In Keima Tamid My Ella ad Chatzos, meaning all these other dinim that we said that are unique to Korban Pesach, including ad Chatzos. And all those other dinim are dinim Doraisa. And Ki Hasam, Ma Hasam, just like all those dinim, that it had to be eaten at night, it had to be eaten only to the menuyom, it has to be eaten sli, is doraisa. They're all biblical restrictions. Afkan nami doraisa here too, the restriction of time to be eaten before chatzos, that is doraisa, and that can only be, according to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, hadran and lecha, ezem akomon, and I guess I'll have to start the sixth parak by myself.